Emily Johnson has always stood out for her strength and determination. Growing up in a small town in the United States, she was the light of her loving family, a young woman full of dreams and aspirations. Her mother, Maya, would always say, "Emily, you can be anything you want," while her father, Tom, supported every decision she made with a warm smile. Her older sister, Sarah, was already in college, but they were always close, and whenever possible, they talked on the phone. Life, however, had other plans for Emily. At the age of 17, an unplanned pregnancy set her on an unexpected path. Sitting in the kitchen with trembling hands holding the pregnancy test, Emily felt her world spin. "Mom, I'm pregnant," she said, tears streaming down her face. Maya hugged her tightly, whispering, "We'll face this together, dear. You're not alone." This unconditional support was a comfort to Emily, but the reality of her situation soon became clear, and she knew that the baby's father wouldn't want to take responsibility. So she decided to go on without him. Lack of formal education and limited resources became even greater obstacles. "I can't go to school anymore, Mom. I need to take care of the baby," Emily said one night while gazing at the stars through her bedroom window, a distant look in her eyes. Her father, upon hearing this, felt a tightness in his heart. "Emily, your education is important. We can find a way," he began, but was interrupted by Emily, who looked at him with newfound maturity. "Dad, I've made my decision. This baby needs me, and I'll do everything I can to be a good mother." Emily's determination was admirable but also a source of concern for her parents. They knew that the challenges were just beginning. Tom and Maya talked at night, expressing their fears to each other. "She's so young, Maya. How will she handle all of this?" Tom asked, his voice choked with emotion. Maya held his hand, offering silent comfort. "She's strong, stronger than we think, and we'll be here for her no matter what happens." So, Emily prepared for the next chapter of her life. She left school, facing the reality of being a young single mother. As she prepared for the arrival of her child, she held onto the strength and love of her family, knowing that despite the challenges, she was not alone. Emily Johnson, now grappling with the complexities of early motherhood, found herself at a crossroads when Jason Miller, the father of her child, entered her life more prominently. Jason, hailing from a wealthy and influential family, represented a very different world from Emily's. His parents were known in town for their wealth and social status, contrasting sharply with Emily's humble life. On a rainy afternoon, while Emily cradled her newborn son, Jake, in her arms, Jason appeared at her doorstep. He was tall, with a serious demeanor that rarely revealed his emotions. "Emily, we need to talk about our son's future," he said, looking directly into her eyes. Emily's modest and cozy living room became the backdrop for a conversation that would change their lives. "Jason, I'm doing the best I can." "Jake means everything to me," Emily replied, holding Jake a little closer. Jason, with an unexpectedly gentle expression, approached. "I know that, Emily. That's why I'm here. I want to help. I want Jake to have all the opportunities he deserves." Emily, though cautious, felt a glimmer of hope. "Are you talking about money?" she asked hesitantly. "Not just money, Emily. I'm talking about family stability. I'm talking about us getting married," Jason revealed, with a seriousness that left no doubt about his intentions. Emily's heart raced. Marriage with Jason, he was Jake's father, but she wasn't sure she was ready for this. "Jason, this is... I don't know what to say." "Marriage is a big step," and Jason interrupted, "I know it's not ideal, Emily. It's not a fairy tale love story, but it's the best for Jake, and I'll ensure that both of you have everything you need." Emily looked at Jake, his small and curious eyes meeting hers. The idea of marrying without love scared her, but the possibility of giving Jake a better life was tempting. "I need to think, Jason. It's not an easy decision." In the following weeks, Emily pondered deeply. Conversations with her parents, sleepless nights staring at the ceiling, and Jake's innocent gaze led her to a decision. On a spring morning, she met Jason in the town park. "Jason, I accept marrying you. Not for me, but for Jake. He deserves a better future." The marriage, though not based on romantic love, represented, for Emily, a door to the stability and opportunities she ardently wished for her son. Thus, with a mixture of hope and uncertainty, Emily embarked on a new chapter of her life, marrying Jason and the pursuit of a safer future for her beloved child. As for Helen Miller, the matriarch of the Miller family and Jason's mother, she was a woman of imposing stature and sharp words. From the beginning, she never hid her disdain for Emily, considering her unfit for her son and the Miller legacy. With her hair always impeccably styled and her stern expression, Helen was an intimidating figure in Emily's life. On a fall afternoon in the elegant Miller living room, Helen summoned Emily for a chat, which felt more like an interrogation. Sitting across from Helen, Emily felt every disdainful glance like a sharp blade. "Emily, you really need to understand how things work in our family. There are certain expectations you must meet," said Helen, her tone cold and calculating. Emily, trying to maintain her composure, replied, "I'm trying to adapt, Mrs. Miller. I'm doing my best." Her heart was pounding, but she struggled not to let her insecurity show. Helen chuckled coldly, "Your best, dear? Your best is inadequate. You come from a different world, and I doubt you'll ever truly grasp ours." Helen's words cut Emily like ice. She missed her family, her simple home, and the freedom she had before. Emily and Jason got along well, despite the circumstances. After they married, Emily soon became pregnant again, giving birth to Lucas. Several times, Emily tried to visit her parents, but there was always some obstacle. "Helen, I would like to visit my family this weekend. Jake hasn't seen my parents in a while, and Lucas should meet his grandparents," Emily requested on one occasion, raising an eyebrow. Helen replied, "Visit your family? I don't think it's appropriate. You are a Miller now, and you have responsibilities here. Besides, I don't want my grandchildren to be influenced by certain elements." Emily's attempts to maintain a connection with her own family were constantly thwarted by Helen, who used her influence to control every aspect of Emily's life. With each refusal, with each cutting comment, Emily felt more isolated and powerless. The atmosphere in the Miller mansion was oppressive, and Emily felt like a prisoner in a gilded world. Helen's disapproval and the forced isolation from her family and friends left Emily desperately lonely, questioning the choices that had led her there. With her influence and manipulation, Helen had created a gilded cage for Emily, one that seemed increasingly difficult to escape. After the birth of Lucas, Emily's second child, the dynamics within the Miller mansion became even more tense. The pressure on Emily to be an exemplary mother by Helen's demanding standards was constant and overwhelming. Every cry from Lucas seemed to amplify her sense of inadequacy, especially under Helen's constantly critical gaze. On a particularly challenging day, while Emily tried to calm the uncontrollable crying of Lucas, Helen entered the baby's room. "Emily, you need to learn to control your child." "That's not how it's done," Helen said, her voice dripping with disdain as she watched Emily struggle. Emily, exhausted and emotionally shaken, responded with a trembling voice, "I'm doing the best I can, Helen. He's just a baby." Tears began to well up in her eyes, a result of accumulated fatigue and frustration. Helen sighed and said coldly, "You need to be stronger, Emily. A Miller mother shouldn't show weaknesses. And speaking of that, where is your family? They don't even seem to care to visit." Emily felt a pang of sadness. She had been eagerly anticipating her mother and sister's visit, hoping that their presence would bring some comfort and normalcy to her currently tumultuous world. I don't know. I was hoping they would come. I don't understand why they haven't shown up," Emily said, confused and hurt. What Emily didn't know was that the Miller family had discreetly interfered. Jason, following his mother's wishes, had instructed the household staff to discourage any visits from Emily's family, citing the need to maintain a peaceful environment for the baby. Later, alone in her room, Emily tried to call her mother, father, and sister, but the calls went to voicemail. "Mom, Dad, Sarah, please call me back. I really need you, she spoke in a voicemail message, sadness evident in her tone. As the night fell, Emily held Lucas in her arms, gently rocking him. She looked out the window, feeling a wave of loneliness and isolation. The absence of her family, combined with the pressure to be a perfect mother in Helen's eyes, weighed on her like a dark cloud. Emily began to question the reality of her world in the Miller mansion, a world where maternal love seemed to blur with manipulation and control. As days turned into weeks and months, Emily found herself increasingly immersed in a whirlwind of maternal responsibilities and suffocating expectations from her mother-in-law, Helen Miller. Life in the Miller mansion, with its silent corridors and imposing halls, was becoming increasingly oppressive for her. Emily, once vibrant and full of dreams, began to feel like she was losing her own identity, her essence fading under the weight of incessant demands. On a particularly challenging afternoon, after a sleepless night taking care of the children, Emily tried in vain to put Lucas to sleep. Helen entered the room, her critical gaze assessing the scene. Emily, you look tired. A woman of our caliber should not let herself be so worn down. Where is that strength that Jason admired in you so much? Emily, holding Lucas in her arms, felt a wave of exhaustion and frustration. I'm trying, Helen, but it's hard. I miss my family. I miss having some support. Helen interrupted with a sharp coldness. Support, Emily? You're living in one of the most respected families. What more could you want? Your family? Well, they simply don't fit in here. Helen's words were like thorns, each one piercing Emily's heart. The distance from her own family and Helen's constant disapproval were eroding her spirit. With the warmth and love of her parents and sister, Emily felt increasingly isolated and lonely. One night, while everyone in the mansion slept, Emily found a moment of solitude in the library. There, surrounded by old books and memories of a happier time, she allowed herself to cry. Tears flowed freely as she whispered to herself, "What have I become? I barely recognize myself anymore." The reflection in the mirror didn't lie. The sparkle in her eyes had vanished, replaced by a tired and worn look. With each passing day, the distance from her family and the pressure to live up to Helen's expectations caused Emily to sink further into a state of sadness and despair. In these moments of reflection, Emily began to question the choices that had led her here. Life in the Miller mansion, with its strict rules and relentless judgments, was becoming unbearable. The young mother who had once dreamed of a life full of possibilities now found herself trapped in a reality where every day was a struggle to maintain her identity and sense of self. As time passed in the Miller mansion, Jason, Emily's husband, became increasingly distant and enigmatic in her life. The man she had married, driven by the hope of a better future for her child, now seemed like a stranger wrapped in his own sphere of work and social obligations. On a cold winter evening, Emily waited for Jason at dinner. The silverware gleamed under the soft light of the chandelier, but Jason's seat remained empty. When he finally arrived, it was late, and the dinner had gone cold. "I'm sorry, Emily. Work held me up again." "You know how it is," said Jason with an apologetic tone that sounded increasingly routine. Emily, tired and frustrated, tried to express her feelings. "Jason, we barely talk. You're always working, and I'm alone here. I need my family. I need to see my parents and my sister." Jason, unbuttoning his shirt collar, responded with an indifference that broke Emily's heart. "Emily, you need to understand. My career is important for us, for the boys' future. As for your family, it's not the best for them to come here, not now." Jason's words sounded like a final verdict, leaving Emily desolate. Her family, once a source of comfort and joy, now seemed like a distant, unreachable world. Every attempt by Emily to reconnect with her family was skillfully diverted by Jason or his mother, Helen. Emily began to feel like she was trapped in a web of isolation, carefully woven by Jason and his family. The gap between Emily and her family was growing deeper and deeper, fueled by Jason's manipulations and Helen's relentless rigidity. Lonely nights became a constant for Emily as she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, lost in thought. The distance from Jason, both emotional and physical, and the isolation from her family and friends left Emily feeling abandoned in a world she could barely recognize. The woman who had once dreamt of love and happiness now found herself trapped in a cold reality where love seemed like a distant memory and loneliness was her only constant companion. On a cloudy spring morning, while Emily made a rare outing for shopping, fate bestowed upon her an unexpected encounter. Walking the city streets, her heart nearly stopped when she spotted a familiar figure. It was Sarah, her sister, whom she hadn't seen in years. With eyes shining with surprise and emotion, Emily ran towards her. "Sarah," exclaimed Emily, embracing her tightly. "I can't believe it's really you." Sarah, equally emotional, returned the embrace. "Emily, I've missed you so much. How are you?" The two sisters found a quiet cafe to talk, sitting at a discreet table with steaming cups of coffee between them. Sarah looked seriously at Emily. "Emily, I need to tell you something important. I tried to visit you several times, but we were always stopped. Jason and his mother, they are purposefully keeping you away from us." Emily, with an expression of surprise and pain, replied, I had no idea, Sarah. I thought you had forgotten about me." Sarah held Emily's hand firmly. "Never, Emily. We're very worried about you. The way Jason and his family are treating you, it's not normal. It's abusive. They're controlling you, isolating you from everyone you love." Sarah's words were like a cold bucket of water for Emily. The pieces of the puzzle began to fit in her mind: the isolation, Jason's indifference, Helen's constant criticism. I don't know what to do, Sarah. I feel so lost." "Emily, you're strong, you always have been, but you don't have to go through this alone. We're here for you," said Sarah, her eyes filled with determination. "You need to think about what's best for you and the boys. Maybe it's time to consider separating from Jason." Sarah's words echoed in Emily's mind as they continued to talk. For the first time in a long time, Emily felt a glimmer of hope. The idea of divorcing Jason, though frightening, began to seem like a real possibility. Her sister's support gave her strength, and for the first time in months, Emily felt that there might be a way out of the dark labyrinth she was in. Emily's decision to propose a divorce to Jason was filled with a mix of fear and determination. She knew the conversation would be difficult, but she wasn't prepared for the explosive reaction that followed. One evening, when Jason came home, Emily confronted him in the living room, her heart pounding in her chest. "Jason, we need to talk," Emily began, trying to keep her voice steady. I can't continue living like this. I want a divorce." Jason, who was unbuttoning his shirt collar, stopped abruptly, his normally expressionless face twisted in anger. "Divorce? Are you kidding me, Emily? You have no idea what you're talking about. After everything I've done for you and the boys, this is how you repay me?" The argument quickly intensified, and before Emily knew it, Jason lost control. In a fit of rage, he pushed her so hard that she fell, hitting her head on the edge of the coffee table. The pain was immediate and overwhelming, and darkness swallowed her consciousness. When Emily woke up, she was in a hospital bed, a throbbing pain in her head and a whirlwind of confused thoughts in her mind. A nurse was by her side, checking her vital signs. "Where am I? What happened?" murmured Emily, trying to remember the events that had led her there. "You're in the hospital, ma'am," replied the nurse gently. "You had a fall. We'll take care of you." Shortly after, Helen appeared in the hospital room, her face a mask of forced concern. "Emily, dear, what have you done?" "Jason is devastated," she said. "He said you tripped and fell. You need to be more careful." Emily looked at Helen incredulous. "Jason pushed me, Helen. He hurt me." Helen shook her head, disapproval in her expression. "Emily, you can't make accusations like that. Jason is your husband. He would be ruined if this came out. Think of the children. You must have stumbled. You know how clumsy you can be." Helen's words sounded like poison to Emily. The reality of the situation was clear and cruel. Jason had turned into an aggressor, and Helen, in her complicity, was trying to distort the truth. Lying in the hospital bed with her head throbbing and her heart heavy, Emily felt an overwhelming sense of helplessness. But amid the pain and betrayal, a resolution began to form within her. She knew she could no longer go back to the life she had been living. It was time for a change, not just for herself, but for her children. The journey would be difficult, but Emily knew she needed to find the strength to start anew. Lying in the hospital bed with the soft light of dawn filtering through the curtains, Emily held the tiny hands of Lucas and Jake, who had been brought to visit her. The gentle and innocent touch of her young son was like a balm to her wounded soul. Watching Lucas's serene face, a wave of determination washed over her. She knew she needed to change her life, not just for herself, but especially for him. "My children," Emily whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I promise I will do everything differently from now on. For us." It was then that her sister Sarah entered the room. Sarah, upon seeing Emily in that condition, felt a mix of anger and sadness. "Emily, what has he done to you?" she asked, holding Emily's hand firmly. "Sarah, I can't live like this anymore. I'm going to divorce Jason. I'm going to report him. I need to protect my children and myself," Emily said with a firm voice, but filled with emotion. Sarah lovingly stroked Emily's face. "I'm with you, Emily. We'll go through this together. We'll make sure you and your children are safe." As they talked, Jason entered the room, his face a mask of feigned concern. "Emily, dear, how are you?" he said, approaching the bed. Sarah, with surprising strength, positioned herself between Jason and Emily. "Get out of here, Jason. You're not welcome. You have no right to be near her after what you've done," Sarah replied, her voice full of disdain. "Now leave before I call security." Jason, realizing he had no choice, left the room, his expression revealing a mix of anger and surprise. With Jason out of the room, Emily felt temporary relief. She knew the journey ahead would be challenging, but with her children by her side and her sister's unwavering support, Emily felt ready to face the future, no matter how uncertain it was. She was determined to rebuild her life, one free from fear and filled with love. After her hospital stay, Emily began her journey towards a new life with the unwavering support of her sister Sarah. Together, they faced the challenges that came with Emily's decision to leave Jason and start fresh. Soon, she initiated the divorce process. This period was a time of rebuilding, marked by both difficulties and renewed hopes. One day, sitting in the kitchen of the small apartment Emily had rented, Sarah said as she flipped through job listings, "Emily, look at this. There's a job opening at a local bookstore. You've always loved books. You should give it a try." Emily, holding Lucas in her lap while Jake slept, looked at the ad. "Do you think so? I haven't worked in so long." "Emily, it's a fresh start. You're smart and capable, and I'll be here to help with Lucas and Jake," encouraged Sarah, smiling. With Sarah's encouragement, Emily applied for the job, and to her surprise and joy, she got hired. Working at the bookstore wasn't just a job, it was a refuge, a place where she could rediscover herself and reconnect with one of her early passions, reading. While Emily took her first steps in her new career, Sarah helped her navigate the legal process of obtaining protective measures against Jason. Sitting together in the attorney's office, Emily felt a mix of nervousness and determination. "I never thought I'd be doing this," Emily said, holding Sarah's hand tightly. "You're doing the right thing, Emily. You're protecting yourself and protecting Lucas and Jake," Sarah replied, squeezing her hand in support. With the protective measures finally in place, Emily felt a sense of relief and security. She knew the road ahead still had its challenges, but for the first time in a long time, she felt she had control over her life and her future. Looking at Lucas, who was now happily playing on the floor of their new home, Emily felt a wave of hope and strength. "We'll be okay," she said softly. "This is our fresh start together. We'll build a life filled with love, security, and happiness." In that small apartment, with her sister's support and her children's love, Emily began to envision a promising future. It was a new beginning, not without its challenges, but full of possibilities and hope. For Helen and Jason had not liked Emily's initiative to request a divorce nor the protective measure against Jason. However, Emily knew that with strength and determination, she, Lucas, and Jake could face whatever lay ahead, ready to write a new chapter in their lives. Soon, Emily was able to reconnect with her parents, Maya and Tom, and along with her sister Sarah, she was able to face all the adversities that life would provide with the help of her family, with love, care, and a lot of support. Thank you for joining us today on Deep Stories. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video.